Nishtapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ramashoki Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Nigamo Kapaturu Garitam Param Shukum Karamito Dravisamitam Pibata Bhagatam Natayam Mahara Hara Bhuvi Bhavikaham Krishna Swadam Bhagate Damagane Kalo Nashta Drishamasho Paranako Duno Ditaham Twamapiyadabhishuta Vishutam Bibu Samapyadana Bidambriguxaram Prakyayuduhur Mahodharitadmaram Sankleshan Nirvana Musanti Nanyataham Atmaramastamунaya Nigranti Kodu Nigranti Abhi Urukamai Korvanti Ayutiki Beritam Bhuttam Ganabari Anarto Pashamam Shakshad Bhakti Yogam Lokashidana Chakri Satpada Samitam Hey Krishna Kuruna Sindhu Dinubandhu Jigatpate Gopisha Gopika Kantara Kantanamostute Jayatam Suruto Pango Mater Mater Giti Matsavashapadam Bojaradan Madanamona Sriman Rasarasaram Bi Vamsi Veda Karsan Vener Shinabago Gopinata Sri Saram Divyad Brindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Radnagara Shima Shanishto Sri Sri Radha Shila Govinda Prastalabihi Sevamanishmarami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Taya Cha Jigadi Taya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gurudhadraja Mangalam Paridikaksho Mangalayatano Hari Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dimmahi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Cha Vidmahi Vishnu Padnita Dimmahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Sade Sade Hari Pre Namastubhyam Dayadade Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhavindavaneshwari Vishavanusute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Namo Vishnu Panaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamanimaste Sarasati Devi Guruvani Pachani Vishesa Sunivadi Paskada Desana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. I'm back. I was back yesterday. This is the second day we're back. And we think that we'll be able to continue even when we're traveling, because if we just go directly to Facebook Live and not go through Zoom, things are much less complicated. That can be done on the phone. To go to Zoom and then from Zoom to go to Facebook, it's a little difficult on a pad or on a phone. But just to go directly to Facebook Live, I can do that anywhere. So I'm sanguine. Prabhupada used the word sanguine in the Bhagavad Gita, which means confident. I'm sanguine that we can continue this practice of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays without breaking it up. I will be traveling to Vancouver 17th and 18th for a 2-day Rath Yatra festival there. So we'll put this theory to the test. And because we go on at 7:30 and Vancouver's an hour earlier, I would have to jump in at 6:30. Wait a minute. That would be on Monday. Yeah, on Monday. Okay, Lee Lavati, thanks very much for joining us. By Bobby. I want to talk to you on Saturday night, Lee Lavati, but I had a bunch of people that I was carpooling, so I had to get everyone back early enough that they could get up in a decent hour, do their work. So weren't able to linger as much as I'd like to. Natasha, Hare Krishna. Nice to have you here. Wonderful. This is kind of a landmark day in as much as it is our 120th episode on Gajendra, and we're still going strong. We're in the 5th of 28 prayers, which Gajendra had composed in his previous life as King Inaduna. Gajendra, Elephant King, in danger's grip, his mind stripped of arrogance, his history unzipped, recalled mantras from a previous life, cut away his attachment like a knife. Formerly King Inaduna, now in elephant form, yet his prayers echoed, weathering the storm. Mantras resurfaced from the past, transcendental sound, awakening memories profound. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he'll take up the slack. He'll carry what you lack. He will get you back home, back to Godhead. Krishna, you're the cause, the result, the witness supreme, transcendental to the stream, unseen behind the material screen, the life in the machine. Please give me protection, Lord of all might. Guide me through this darkness to the eternal light. Krishna, even if a devotee should fall from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he'll take up the slack. He'll carry what you lack. He will get you back home, back to Godhead. Krishna, the observer, the transcendental preserver above this creation, aloof like the sun, and yet with your energies, you bless everyone, simultaneously apart from this world and one. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he'll take up the slack. He'll carry what you lack. He will get you back to home, back to Godhead. With multi-potencies, you manifest your will, creating this universe, your purpose to fulfill. And when it's time to end, you absorb it all back, like a spider retracts his web into his sack. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he'll take up the slack. He'll carry what you lack. He will get you back home, back to Godhead. Chant Hare Krishna, the Maha Mantra's call. In this life or the next, it will never fail. Once the seed is sown, the bhakti creeper will grow. Sooner or later, it will get you back home, back to Godhead. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, will take up the slack. He carries what you lack. He will get you back home, back to Godhead. Just brushing up on our newest creation, which is a little dip into the prayers of Gajendra to complement our earlier song, which pretty much describes the circumstances behind Gajendra calling out to the Lord and remembering those prayers from his past life in the first place. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Karoshmin lokas dayakri pravato lokas samaritan vitopishan evashtita pratinukuyasha. As he shows his universal form to Arjuna, Arjuna stands there, disoriented, with vertigo, as he looks at his friend Krishna, who all of a sudden has changed his appearance. Now he's many-armed, many-mouthed, many heads, and the opposing soldiers of the Krava army are being pulled into his mouth. He's consuming, he's devouring, just as time devours everything. Krishna says to Arjuna, this is my feature as time, and I've come to destroy all worlds. He says, except for you and your 4 brothers, all the soldiers on both sides will be slain. Just as the crocodile came to chew on the leg of the elephant, Gajendra, similarly, time is gnawing, like a dog will spend hours gnawing at a bone. Or the house that I grew up in Pennsylvania was built during the Revolutionary War. There's a deed from 1789 or a transaction, a purchase order, big stones, and 3 downstairs room and a fireplace in each room. So during a Pennsylvania winter, when there's 18 or 24 inches of snow on the ground, you settle into the kitchen, you build a fire, and you sit in front of the fire. You pass the time very comfortably, being toasted by the warmth of the fire. And as you do, we find ourselves endlessly fascinated, don't we, with fire? We could just sit and stare into a fire for hours, watch the different configurations of the flame, how the flames dance and leap up and change shape, go vertically, go horizontally. It's an endlessly changing vista for us. And if you focus on any one of those particular logs, you'll see, not dramatically, not necessarily particularly quickly, but inexorably. You'll look at a certain log, and then you glance at that log again a half an hour later, and that log is always less. The log is never more. The log being consumed by the flame is always less. It has less substance. The potential energy is being transferred to, what is it called? Kinetic energy. That means the log itself is being transformed into smoke, into fire, and into ashes. And it no longer preserves its characteristics as wood. So in the same way that a dog will gnaw away at a bone and reduce the bone with the powerful working of its jaws, in the same way that a fire will gnaw away at wood and reduce the wood, in the same way that the crocodile is gnawing away. Initially, when Gajendra first entered the water, he was chuffed with himself. He was quite complacent, satisfied, looking good, feeling good, everything's good, lived in a good place, had good respect from his neighbors, had good strength, good power, good influence, good family, good children, good grandchildren, good wife, good food. Everything was good until the croc hit him in the water. And then he realized, oh, in my overconfidence, in my complacency, I went into the water, not calculating that the water is not my natural environment. I became so puffed up, blinded by pride, that I thought even going into the water, even putting myself at a disadvantage, even leaving the land where nobody can conquer me, and going into the water where there are other aquatics who are stronger than me, because water is their natural environment. On the land, the elephant is king of the jungle, even over and above the lion. But on the water, he's not king. This is what happens when you get blinded by pride. Pride leads you to be slack, to be careless. Pride goes before a fall, principally because pride causes you to let your guard down. Pride causes you to relax your vigilance. It's been so long since anybody has dared to challenge me. It's been so long since there's been any threat of any sort whatsoever. Therefore, I conclude that there is no one, there is nothing out there that can rock my world. This is the height of illusion, because there are millions of things out there that can rock your world. Just look at a tiny virus. Look at a tiny microscopic virus. You can't even see what the microscope did to the whole world during COVID. And right now there's a huge hurricane, Debbie, I think, making landfall in Georgia. You know, turning the world of people in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina upside down right now. From the smallest to the largest. There are countless ways that God can rock your world through your own body and your mind, to other members of your species, through members of other species, through the actions of material nature, through water, through fire, through air. There's so many different ways. We're so vulnerable. But when you come to the point that Gajendra came to, where you're no longer vigilant, when you're no longer apprehensive, when you're no longer careful, you totally miscalculated your situation. Some Sritaye Pada Palabram. This material world is full of dangers at every step. We spoke yesterday about how devotees, people who are objective in their views of reality, live their life in such a way that death could come at any time. Death can come at any time. So am I ready? Am I in Krishna consciousness as I go about my moment-to-moment activities throughout each and every day? If death comes and taps me on the shoulder, it's always going to be a surprise. Death is always going to take you unawares. So are you prepared? Is your Krishna consciousness deep enough? Has your practice been serious and diligent and consistent and sustained enough that when you get a surprise, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. You know, they have these commercials, they're not commercials, they're snippets on YouTube where people are walking down a street, maybe they're talking to their friends, and there's a little tree on the sidewalk there. And the tree is actually a person with a tree costume on, and they jump unexpectedly. They jump at the person. They take a step towards the person. The person is talking to their friends or thinking about their schedule, trying to rush back to the office, having taken too long at lunch. And when this tree jumps out at them, more than half of them swear, Jesus. He grabbed her. When they're presented with something, a surprise, something unexpected, we see that what's in comes out. Normally you can make a pretense of being a very upright and sober and pretentious and conscientious member of the community. But it doesn't take much to have that pretense fade away, to have that screen open on the real you, giving an insight into the real thoughts in your heart. Just let there be a surprise. Just let there be something unexpected, unplanned, unpredictable, out of left field, as they say, a curveball, as they say. And people lose it. People reveal the dirty situation of their heart. So the question we need to ask is our practice diligent enough, conscientious enough, consistent enough, that when we get the shock of our lives, death comes unexpectedly, are we going to say Hare Krishna, with devotion, with positivity? Are we going to embrace it? Maharaj Pariksit, he had 7 days notice. He was unfairly cursed. He could have wasted his time thinking, this is not fair. I didn't deserve this. I only committed a mild affront to the sage by draping his neck with the body of a serpent. And the sage himself didn't take it very seriously, but the sage's son overreacted and cursed the king to die within 7 days by the bite of a snake. Pariksit didn't waste a second in self-pity. He didn't waste a second calling his friends, going on Facebook, starting a political movement. He asked himself the question, not whether it's fair or not whether you're ready to go or not, but how can I spend this time most profitably? How can I concentratedly use the next 7 days of my life in such a way as to guarantee my transfer back to home, back to God? And most of us don't have 7 days notice. If we did, we'd probably fall apart anyway. But Pariksit took the time which he had to immerse himself in Krishna consciousness with the help of Sukadeva Goswami, and he went back to home, back to God. And every character in the Srimad Bhagavatam has successfully passed the final test of life, which is death. How you've lived your life is determined, is gauged. Whether you get a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star, that's all going to be determined at the time of death. When you order something on Amazon, they don't ask you to rate the transaction, to rate the merchant, until presumably you've received the goods and tested them out, till the transaction is over and finished. When you order, they don't ask you to rate it. When they've shipped it, they don't ask you to rate it. When it's in transit, they don't ask you to rate it. When it's delivered, they don't ask you to rate it. They wait a few days until you've had time to unpack it, try it out. Then they ask you, how do you rate the product? How do you rate the shipping time? How do you rate the customer service? And how do you rate the seller? So similarly, how you've lived your life is determined at the end of life, not in the beginning, not in the middle, not towards the end, but whether your life has been conducted successfully or not is determined at the end. And that's when Krishna, in the form of time, approaches one. Sometimes time is compared to a black snake. Black snake hovers over the mouse. Mouse is going about his busyness, hardly aware at all of the hovering presence of the black snake over his shoulder. And at the black snake's sweet will, nothing to do. Black snake doesn't ask the mouse, when would be a good time? Can we make an appointment? What would you like? When would you like me to come back? There's none of that back and forth. It's all a one-sided relationship. not when the mouth wants it, not when the mouse is ready for it, not when the mouse is prepared for it, not when the mouse has made an appointment, but when the snake wants to, when whatever reason he wants to do it, whether he's hungry or he's impatient or he just doesn't like that mouse, whatever the reason is, the mouse's life is going to end at the whim of the snake and not of the mouse. The mouse has no, you might think, well, it's my life. I should have a say in it. Well, you don't, unfortunately. And the reason is that Krishna has already made you eternal. So you're not really going to die. You're going to just change body. You don't have, nobody can take away life. Life is always there. Life is an eternal blessing given to us from our Father, which cannot be countervened, cannot be negated or counteracted. But when we leave this body, we don't have any say in that. When we came, did we have any say? Did we organize the day of our birth? Did we point out which parents that we're going to come into this world through? Did we indicate what country we'd be born in, what city, what house, what neighborhood? Did we have a say in any of that? We did not. We came into this world like, wow. Simply, you don't have any say in the change of body either at the end of life. You don't have any say in that whatsoever. So am I going to be ready? And the best way to be ready is to get all the help you can. Death is so traumatic. Death is such a upheaval that practically speaking, there's not much, you don't have really, to be honest, you don't have a lot of hope that you on your own can handle the trauma of leaving your body. Death is defined as a pain that you beyond what you can tolerate. If there's a pain or an injury or a chronic disease, and you can put up with it, if you can put up with it, it means it's not terminal. It means you haven't been brought to the threshold where you can no longer stand it. Imagine you're in an apartment. The paint might be peeling, but you can still live in the apartment. The electricity only works an hour a day, but you can still live in the apartment. The hot water stopped working 6 months ago, but you can still live in the apartment. Now the cold water stopped, but you still live in the apartment. Now there's no electricity, still in the apartment. You can put up with a lot of things and still cling to the apartment because at least it gives you walls to protect you from the cold and the heat, gives you a place where you can go and get some privacy and get something to eat, get some respite. There's a bed there you can lie down. So there's a lot that can happen, a lot of utilities, a lot of paint and furniture which can break down or become dysfunctional, and you will still remain within that apartment. You'll still cling to that apartment. However, when the wrecking ball comes, when the crane appears on the street outside and the wrecking ball comes and takes out a whole wall, so there's nothing between you and the sky. In fact, if you take the wrong step and you're on a third or fourth story, you're going to have quite a rude awakening. At that point, there's no longer any question of staying within the apartment. You're going to get lickety split out of that apartment before the next time the wrecking ball hits. So death is defined as that intolerable. It's a level of pain which takes you somewhere you've never been before. You might have broken some ribs. You might have had a tumor. You might have had a concussion. You might have gone without food for many days. You might have experienced the betrayal of a rejection by someone with whom you were in love. Whatever the pains that we experience, we remained in the body. We did not give up the body because they did not take us beyond the threshold which we could tolerate. But death is defined, whether it come to a violent, sudden accident or just the gradual running down of the body due to old age or disease or drive-by shooting or drowning in a tidal wave or being blown away by a hurricane. Death is defined as that level of pain, that level of suffering, which you can no longer tolerate. And the fact that we're in our bodies now means that we haven't experienced anything like that yet in this lifetime. Because when you do experience that level of pain, you will no longer be able to stay in your body. Your body is no longer a suitable habitation. That is defined as death. Death comes when we leave this body, being no longer able to maintain residency within this body. And when that level of destruction takes place, either for us as individuals or for the universe, we mentioned yesterday, they're partial annihilations at the end of the day of Brahma's, and then there's the total annihilation of the entire universe at the end of Brahma's lifetime. Everything becomes dark. It's not just that the sun goes down and there are shadows that cover everything. No, this darkness of pralaya, this darkness of universal destruction, it's far beyond any, just like the pain that's going to cause you to leave your body is beyond any level of pain that you've ever experienced during life. The level of this darkness is going to be so deep, dark, and impenetrable. There's nothing to compare it to. Not even the darkness at 3 o'clock in the morning in January or February. Not even the darkness of being locked into a closed room. Not even the darkness of closing your eyes at midnight and keeping your eyes tightly closed. There is no darkness that we've ever experienced which can compare to the tamasic darkness of pralaya, the darkness of the universal destruction. Because that darkness means everything's gone. Everything's gone. Sun's gone. The moon's gone. Any source of light is gone. Anything upon which that light source would have fallen and illuminated, like tables or chairs or houses or trees or mountains, they're all gone. There's nothing. There's nothing. Just like right now, Arjuna is facing the Kaurava army. There's Duryodhana, there's Bhisma, there's Dronacharya, there's Ashwatthama, there's Sakuni, and they're all kings, people of influence. They have a lot of self-possession, a lot of confidence. They're veteran warriors. They've dealt with enemies. They've dealt with conspiracies. Each one runs their kingdom efficiently, sometimes ruthlessly. They're used to getting their way. And they represent an immense amount of wealth, opulence, buildings, population. They all have countless horses and cows and warriors at their bidding. And yet, by the vision that Krishna unveils to Arjuna in the chapter in the universal form, everything's going to be finished. Arjuna gets a view of the future. He gets a view 18 days fast forward, and it's all gone. It's all gone. All the opulence, all the power, the bodies that the kings are so proud of, the bodies that they use to dominate other lesser kings and to rule a constituency, the bodies to which were attracted wealth and women and children are all finished. There's nothing where before there had been so much. And yet, aham evasham evaga nanyat sada satsaham. Beyond all that comes and beyond all that goes, there's Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada Basanti Suryo Devivat Chataduraksha. There are the eyes of Krishna, the lotus-like eyes of Krishna, surrounded by curling hair. Krishna's face is compared to the lotus flower. His curling black hair is compared to swarming bees, and his two eyes are compared to two beautiful swimming fish. That face, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param, stands as a sun in the sky, eternally present, eternally consoling, eternally encouraging, eternally illuminating, eternally beckoning, eternally offering itself to be our partner, to be our support, to help us get through the crisis of death and destruction. The Lord offers his smiling lotus-like face, which is metaphorically surrounded by the humming bees in the form of his hair, decorated by the two eyes, which are compared to two fish swimming about. The Lord's face, the Lord's smile, which has no beginning, no middle, and no end, is the consolation of the devotees for the darkness, the denseness, for the destruction. Every aspect of Krishna's smile can more than compensate for all the negatives of this material world. First of all, Krishna's eyes. You cannot look in Krishna's eyes and maintain fear. Krishna's eyes automatically soothe one from fear. When we visit the temple, we get darshan. Darshan means you enter the temple, you ring the bell, you enter the temple, you take your Anjali mudra, you put your hands folded together in front of your heart. And it's not so much you look eye to eye in the Lord. We're not that presumptuous, but we look downwards, a little bit downcast, but we place ourselves within the vision of the Lord's eyes, the deity form of the Lord on the altar. We've taken the time, the trouble to go to the temple and to enter the temple room. Devotees never enter with empty hands. They always give a flower, or bring some milk, or bag of rice or something, give something to Krishna. Then we stand there for as long as we can, and we position ourselves within the vision of the Lord. And as we do so, as we stand there for 1 minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, fear goes away. Fear dissolves. Fear finds someplace else, goes out the door and down the road. Krishna's eyes soothe one from fear. Krishna's eyes are sending us a message: do not fear. Throughout the ghastliness, throughout the horribleness of this material world, for every horrible, Krishna says, I have a haribol. Rather than go towards the horrible, secret is just go towards the haribol. Haribol, haribol. Secondly, Krishna's smile will dry up oceans of grief. We've all experienced the loss of a loved one. Arjuna himself lost his dearmost son, Abhimanyu, right in that self-same Kurukshetra war. He was ganged up onto by 7 Maharajas from the other side, and he was killed, butchered, really unfairly. At the same time, Krishna and Arjuna were on the battlefield in a different location. While Krishna was personally present, Arjuna's son was slaughtered unfairly. And after the initial wave of grief and shock that Arjuna experienced, having returned to the camp at the end of the day's battle and discovering that his son was no longer there to greet him, as was his custom, and then gradually putting two and two together and realizing that he would never again see his son in that life, after that wave of grief and shock, he turned to Krishna and he said, Krishna. And it was only Krishna's smile. It was only that he had to look at Krishna's smile to stabilize him amongst the potential ocean of grief. Initially, in the setting, as they were all setting up, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, Arjuna asked Krishna to drive his chariot in the middle of the two armies. And as he looked at his teachers and friends and cousin brothers, he got depressed. He got paralytic. He got defeatist. He dropped his bow. He began trembling. He started crying. This big, powerful warrior started crying. But he had only to look over at Krishna to see Krishna smiling, unaffected by the vicissitudes of material nature, hot and cold, honor and dishonor, attachment and detachment. Krishna was looking at Arjuna with this smile on his face. Arjuna was, and what is all this? Remonstration, all this ranting and raving, this blaming of God. Why did you allow this to happen? These pity parties that we subject ourselves to. What is all of that? When we look at Krishna's smile and see that Krishna is nothing. Krishna's smile says to Arjuna several things. It says to Arjuna, don't worry, Abhimana is not dead, he's just left his body. Krishna's smile says to Arjuna, he left it gloriously. The people who killed him incur sin, ignominy, because they didn't fight him fairly according to the rules of chivalry. But he fought back fairly. He attained unlimited glory. He is even now, Krishna's smile conveys to Arjuna, he is even now living in the heavenly planets, enjoying heavenly delights, reaping the benefits of his heroic actions. Krishna's smile, furthermore, says to Arjuna, just be patient and you'll also join him. As he did his duty, as he reacted to adversity with a good attitude, as he passed the tests and did not desert principles of character and integrity, and is now reaping the rewards, you also are on the same path, and you will see him before you know it. Krishna's smile, without Krishna even necessarily saying anything, Krishna's smile dried up Arjuna's grief. And thirdly, for us, the biggest shackles of this material world is the attraction of one sex for another. And the fulcrum, the turning point of that, the most powerful weapon that Maya, the illusory energy, employs to keep us in this material world, keep us enthusiastic about material activities, all of which end in death, trauma, disappointment, misery, and suffering. Maya's foremost weapon are the eyebrows of beautiful women. The eyebrows of beautiful women, from those eyebrows, which are shaped like a bow. And then this is the handle, and this is the curvature of the bow. And then the arrows come from the eyes of the woman. It says that when a beautiful woman shoots arrows at a man through the bow of her eyebrows, even great world conquerors like Charlemagne, like Julius Caesar, like Mark Antony, they're like Prithviraj, they're laid into the dust. Their arrows conquer the world. Their soldiers overrun the surface of the earth. But these big kings who sit on thrones and they're worshipped, they're bowed down to by kings who were formerly their equals, but whom they successfully subdued with arrows and javelins and swords. Those same kings, once they go into the chambers of the women, they become like dancing dogs. The world conquerors in the chambers of the women become just like dancing dogs. All their power is reduced to nil. So how do we deal with the power of the glances of a beautiful woman? We go on Facebook, we turn on the TV, we drive down the freeway, and everywhere we look, we're assailed, we're attacked, we're shot at by the glances through the eyebrows of beautiful women. What chance do we have? Well, you can't ignore it. You can't shut it out because it's everywhere. Everywhere we're being allured over to the side of Maya. We're being allured by the glances of the opposite sex. And it's not the women's fault. Don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming. It is our own attachment, it's our own lusty predisposition, which makes us so susceptible to the woman's charms. The only antidote are the eyebrows of Krishna. Again, when you present yourself before the deity of the Lord, you focus in a humble attitude, you let the glance of the Lord purify you. You let the glance of the Lord uplift you. Let the glance of the Lord dry up all of your sorrow. You let the glance of the Lord dispel fear from your heart. And then you can cautiously look up, and then yourself look at the eyebrows of Krishna, the eyebrows of Radharani, the eyebrows of Ram, the eyebrows of Chaitanya, Nityananda. By being enamored, enchanted by the eyebrows on the deity form of Krishna, or Krishna's plenary portions, that will supplant, that will trump, that will eclipse our tendency to get distracted and entrapped by the eyebrows of the ordinary mundane men and women of this world. Balame Paschimaya Sri Mayani. The glances from the eyebrows of the women are so powerful that they themselves deal the death blow to great world conquerors. But the glances from Krishna's eyebrows can completely counteract all attachment, latent attachment that one may have for the material names and forms of this material world. Krishna's eyebrows, Krishna's glances are the ultimate goal, the ultimate meditation for the devotees of the Lord. And therefore it says that the yogis, those whose goal is not to remain in this material world, but those whose goal is to transfer to the spiritual world, the yogis meditate upon that glance of the Lord and thus achieve distance, thus achieve consolation, thus achieve relief from the fear, the grief, and the miseries, and the lusty attachments of this material world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you. Let's see. Jumping on first is Lilavati with some pranams and a yay, exclamation part, exclamation. Brent, Haribo, Lilavati again, expressing happiness that we might be able to continue these through Facebook Live, even when traveling. And Natasha, Hare Krishna, Natasha. Yeah, Lee can relate with Krishna as a chariot driver because she's a Uber driver. So there's that connection between her and Krishna. She knows how it feels. Mahatma, the Prashadarian, Hari Hari. Good morning. I follow all your posts on Facebook. Britta and Dutch. Dutch says, this hits so close to home this morning. This morning, my father and I exited this world and entered the next stage. We are truly immortal souls and not this body. The glance of Krishna, the smile of Krishna can cool the hot grief that we feel when we lose someone near and dear to us. We will see them again, but we have to just do our part, walk the path of righteousness, and we're guaranteed. In the Mormon culture, the LDS culture, it's kind of just given that you'll be with your wife and your relatives in the next life, but that's not a given. It depends on your behavior. Just like they say, those who pray together stay together. So similarly, if you're together, if you eat meals together and you're actually together and you actually have conversations together, and those conversations are God-based, and you start your day by maybe doing a little kirtan or reading Bhagavad Gita, you gather in the evenings. If the heads of the family, the father and mother, can keep the family together, at least for morning practices and for an evening practice, then everybody's conscience will be similar. And yes, you will not experience separation for very long. You will be rejoined in the very, very near future. But that is not an easy job in this age of social media and YouTube. It's the hardest thing in the world. I'm not a parent, but I look at these parents and how to keep the kids on the straight and narrow, how to keep the kids from their noses being in their phone all the time, and from them getting up from the dinner table in mid-conversation and wandering off into la la land. There's actually a passage in the Srimad Bhagavatam that says anyone who's a successful parent in the Kali Yuga is like the greatest level of hero. The greatest level of hero. If you can raise some kids and get them through the teenage years without them abandoning devotional service and being lost, swept away totally by Maya, such a parent is a great hero. I never had the courage to attempt it. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I had what it takes. So those of you who are parents, and we have Krishna Prasaya here from Seattle. She moved here about a month ago. And she's an example. I mean, her kids also, you know, we went up to chant at the Indian Food Fair in Salt Lake City on Saturday, and the kids, Mayapur and Omkar, they wanted to ride along. They wanted to come. So I just assumed they were coming to chant, join the party. So we arrived there, we set up, and the oldest one, he's gone. I don't know where he went. He just went. I didn't see him. We were there for an hour and a half. I didn't see him. The younger one, Mayapur, he's a sweet kid. He was playing the drum while we were sitting in the grass, and we were invited onto the stage, and he was playing the drum for the first of Agni's set. Then I did a rap song or two, and then we went back to chant again, and he's gone. I don't know. I didn't see him go. He was right in front of me, sitting down. I was standing up, he was sitting down. I didn't see. There's the drums sitting there on the stage, and his mother and I. Where did he go? Where did he go? And we even made an announcement over the. And he didn't. He didn't reappear. Agni started playing the drum. It was so funny. So kids, you look away for a second, they're gone. But all in all, these are good kids. I mean, I'm not trying to criticize or anything. I'm just having fun at your expense. But she does a pretty good job, all in all. There are kids who are interested in Krishna consciousness, and they're happy to do service. So Chad talks about losing his father-in-law. Think of Krishna's smiling face and get consolation. Brent, as the log is burned by the flame, we won't always stay the same. Time transforms what we think can't change, no matter what we try to arrange. Our only connection to Krishna stays steady, so for death be ready. Material flames will die out, but have no doubt about what it's really all about. Good. We shouldn't base our lives on things that we wish, but on an eternal loving flame that can't be extinguished. I love your poetry, Brent. As a log is burned by the flame, we won't always stay the same. Time transforms what we think we can't change, no matter what we try to arrange. Only our connection to Krishna stays steady, so for death be ready. Material flames will die out, but have no doubt about what it's really all about. We shouldn't base our lives on things that we wish, but on eternal loving flame that can't be extinguished. Your rhymes are good, and they're getting longer too. Hare Krishna, the Satindra Charma, Satinder Sharma. Britta says all the beautiful women in the world are also being gnawed on, and their beauty is so brief. Any beauty they may have emanates from the Lord. Put worship where it rightly belongs. Yeah, I quoted that poem yesterday. Fairest lady ever seen, he made his bride, crowned his queen, pillowed on the marriage bed, whispering to his soul, he said, bridegroom never press fair bosom to his breast, but mortal flesh will come to clay. Even this will pass away. Even this will pass away. Britta, she says, trying hard to be a great parent in the Kali Yuga by the grace of Sri Krishna. My hat's off to any and all parents out there. Sarita Alfaro reaches out to us in Spanish from El Salvador. Buenos dias y gracias. Your words are medicinal this morning for me here in El Salvador. Thanks so much for taking the time to write a comment this Transcendental Tuesday morning. All right. We don't have Rob with us. I don't blame him. He was, when I was in Toronto, when I was in Thunder Bay, and when I was in Michigan, every Monday morning, he would, I would see Rob's in the waiting room, Rob's in the waiting room, but he must have gotten frustrated at some point and just given up. So now when we're back, Rob's gone. Anyway, I'm going to particularly Brent's poems, I put, there's a place when you post these videos on YouTube, there's a place for comments. So I usually paste the poems that Brent or Carmen or Natasha or Britta or anyone makes. So if you do a poem, it'll be on Facebook, and I'll also put it on YouTube also. Thank you very much. This has been Transcendental Tuesday. Fun as always. We'll continue these talks tomorrow on Wisdom Wednesday. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare